welcome back to the channel. I do appreciate you for clicking on this video. If you missed the first part of this series, just to catch you up, this is a multi-part series, so we're going over, it's a complete EDC consideration series. So I have posted the first part of it. I'll link that up above. This is part 2, so we're going to be going over pistol and holster considerations. Now, this whole series is primarily for newer carriers, so people that are just now kind of starting to carry a gun for protection. Maybe you're carrying, maybe you're going to be carrying here soon. So this is primarily for y'all, but for you more experienced people, I would love for y'all to stick around as well. Be sure to drop anything that I miss, anything that you might have to add, drop that in the comments and help me answer questions. When I first started this channel, I made it a point to respond to every single comment, and it has gotten to the point now that I've missed several comments. I'm sure I can't quite keep up, and YouTube doesn't notify me of all the comments because there's a higher number of them. So I'm super appreciative of the comments, and I respond to as many of them as I can. But I would appreciate it if some of y'all would take it upon yourselves to help me out, help the channel out, and help the people out that are asking questions. Just give them some feedback, and maybe I'll get to the comment later. But like I said, if you're more experienced and you've got an opinion that you feel is valid, then go ahead and leave that in the comments and help me out. I would greatly appreciate it. So starting out, we're going to talk about some common statements or arguments, if you will, that people make. I've got a list of them on my phone, so we're going to talk about them, and then we're going to discuss them. So the first one is, I'm sure y'all have heard this one, it's something along the lines of, a high point on the hip is better than a Glock on the nightstand. I call complete BS on that. First off, if you've got a high point on your hip and a Glock at home, go home, grab the Glock, carry that pistol, sell the high point, and then slap the piss out of yourself. Do not rely on a high point. I don't care if that's the best that you can do better. Okay, the second one goes something like, the best gun is the gun that you have on you. Again, that's complete BS. If you know that you're going to be carrying a gun, make sure it's a good one. Don't excuse a piece of crap gun because, oh, it's the gun that I've got on me, so that's the best gun I can have. No, it's not. The best gun that you can have is a good gun. Don't carry a piece of crap gun and then tell people, oh, the best gun is the gun that I can have on me. If the best gun is the gun that you're going to have on you, then make sure the gun you have on you is going to be a good gun. Okay? Moving on to the third one. This is a gun store classic. Is the best gun is the one that fits in your hand. All guns fit in your hand, okay? Unless you're like a little bitty baby and you're trying to hold a Desert Eagle. All guns are going to fit in your hand. Now, there are some exceptions of some guns are just too big and it makes it a little bit difficult, but for the most part, if you've got normal size hands, any pistol is going to fit your hand good enough, okay? The problem is you got a lot of new people out there looking for guns, and so when they hear the best gun is the one that fits your hand, well, they don't know how to hold the pistol right. If they knew how to hold the pistol right, then they would realize that most guns feel pretty good in the hands. I do hold a Glock different than I hold a Walther. The grip angle's different, but I can shoot a Glock very, very well, even though it doesn't feel great in my hands. All right, and now we've got micro guns are good carry guns. No, they're not. No, they're not. Now, that might be a good gun to carry, but if you've ever got to go beyond that, if you've ever got to use that pistol for the reason that you're carrying it, to protect yourself, a micro gun is not the gun that you want. I can assure you of that. A micro gun is not the gun that you want to fight with. There's a saying, it goes something like, there's no gun too small to carry and no gun too big for a gunfight. So that's why most people fall in line with like a compact size pistol. But we'll jump into that. Again, micro guns are not the best carry guns. So the reason that micro guns are not good carry guns is because they're a lot harder to shoot. What I mean by that is you can shoot them well if you're an experienced shooter. But the amount of time that it's going to take to shoot that micro pistol well, to figure it out and get good with it, that same amount of time, you could be light years ahead if you were shooting a compact or even a full-size pistol. So I do not recommend micro guns, especially for newer carriers. I don't recommend micro guns at all. unless it's like very, very particular circumstances. But if you are one of those people, you probably know that that's your only option and you don't need my opinion. Now, with all of this being said, we're going to go ahead and dive on into what I've got out here. We're going to talk about what matters, things that you should consider, things that I considered, and just overall what I've found over the last couple years of carrying a pistol. Just a quick break from the video because unfortunately I do have some bad news. But there's good news to follow. So the bad news is your information is being stolen and sold on the internet. There's these companies called data brokers. These data brokers take your data, your personal data, that includes bank information, credit card information, social media passwords, medical records, everything that makes up your identity. It's all out there on the internet now. So these data brokers, they take this information, they sell it to anybody that might want that information. That includes spammers, scammers, hackers, governments, social media campaigners. All of these people, whoever's willing to buy it, they're willing to sell it to them because they're just out for personal gain. So that's the bad news, is that your information is not concealed. The good news, however, is today's video sponsor is Aura. So what Aura is they're the good guys in the fight. They use a software that constantly searches the internet 24/7 for any of your information. Once they find your information out there, they immediately notify you and then give you an auto opt-out so that you can be protected. So to put this into perspective, AT&T reported a data breach of 73 million former and current members where their information was leaked out onto the dark web, and the FBI has reported $10.3 billion worth of cyber loss. So if you want to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, I would recommend using Aura. Now, to do that, you can sign up for a 2-week free trial just to test it out, just to see how much of your information is actually out there on the internet. So a 2-week free trial and you get full membership benefits. You can also opt out at any time. So to capitalize on that, what you're going to do is you're going to use the link in my description, or you can use the link that's pinned in the top of the comment section, or to give you a third option, you can go to aura.com/overalls. Again, that's going to be a 2-week free trial with full access to membership benefits, and you can opt out at any time. So, with all of that being said, back to the video. So now we're going to talk about the things that actually matter, starting off with the size of the pistol that you choose to carry. Now, different people can get away with different size pistols. For me personally, I have a hard time concealing a full-size pistol for the better part of the year. So that's why I tend to carry a compact 95% of the time. But there's more to it than just saying like a full-size or a compact or a subcompact or a micro or a mouse gun, you know, whatever. There's more to it than just calling it by the size. There's actually a few measurements that you need to pay attention to when choosing. And so we'll go ahead and jump on into the measurements that actually matter. Now, it's worth noting that every pistol on this table is a Walther PDP. Obviously, I like PDPs. These are the only pistols that I have. So you're just gonna have to excuse the lack of examples that I'm gonna be working with. But this is strategic, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit later on why it's only PDPs. Now, there's 2 measurements that you need to pay attention to when choosing a pistol. There's more than just compact and full size and subcompact, micro. You need to actually pay attention to the measurements of the gun. Now, the 2 measurements that are going to matter the most as far as the way that the gun is going to be able to conceal is going to be the length from the bottom of the grip to the top of the slide. Now, you need to take into account more than just the actual pistol. You need to take into account magazines. So as I add different magazines, you know, this grip could get longer and longer, and depending on what optic I've got, the same thing. So you want to pay attention to the length of the grip from the bottom of the grip to the top of the slide. The second measurement is going to be the width of the slide. So now, to discuss and explain this further, I've got my carry pistol, and then I've got about as many lengths of magazines that I'm aware of for Walther. So I've got 5 different magazines. Each of them are going to be a different length. And so we'll start off on the smallest and we'll kind of work our way up to the longest. And I'll show you the way that it affects the way that the gun conceals. So starting out, we're just going to put in a flush fit magazine. This is the one that I tend to carry with the most. So as you can see, it is flush with the bottom of the grip. And as you can see, it's not printing, at least not from what I can tell. There's a slight bit of printing right here on the corner. where the magazine is, where the bottom of the grip is. If I pull the shirt tight, so this right here is what's going to be printing more than anything else on a pistol. So that's why you need to take into consideration the length of that, because the longer that it is, the more that it's going to print. So again, there's a flush fit mag. Now we'll put in one that's got a brass base plate, and if I can get the angle right, you can see that it is just a hair longer. So go ahead and put that one in. Now, there's not much of a noticeable difference there. I do notice a slight difference that the shirt is pulled just a little bit tighter right there on the magazine. I'll go ahead and pull it tight so that you can get a good example. Now we'll drop in the Pro SD mag. So as you can see now, we took a good sized jump in magazine length. And immediately that's noticeable. You know, I can definitely tell a difference with the amount that it's sticking out there. Now it's not terrible, and I can get away with this depending on what clothing I wear, but again, that's pretty noticeable to me. Now we'll jump up to the full-size magazine. Now again, just one more small jump. And you can see we're starting to stick out there pretty far. And the last magazine is going to be this Canic mag. So this is I think it's a 20 round magazine. So we went from 18 rounds to 20 rounds. And as you can see, it's another jump in length. And I'm gonna have a hard time walking around without that being noticeable if I'm wearing just a t-shirt. Now it's not terrible, but it's certainly not ideal as far as concealability goes. So as you can see there, that the length of the grip and the magazine plays a huge part in how well the gun's going to conceal. Now obviously different body shapes and body types and different environments as far as the clothes that you wear, you can get away with carrying a bigger gun or more magazine, or a bigger magazine, more capacity. Now I'm a smaller guy, so I can't get away with carrying a full-size pistol for most parts of the year. If I was to try to stick this in there, I mean, it would be very, very noticeable wearing just a t-shirt. I can get away with carrying a compact as long as I'm running a flush fit magazine that conceals under a t-shirt fine. Now, something else that you need to take into account is actually a little bit of a combination of the two. So we'll use this right here, the Pro SD, for example. So now it's got the same width as, you know, the standard PDP, the compact that I do carry. It's got the same size frame, but the Pro SD has got a flared magwell on it, and that plays a huge deal as far as the way the gun conceals. I'll show you the difference. So what I've got here is two examples. Again, all the measurements are basically the exact same. The width of the slide, the length of the grip, except this one right here has got a magwell, the flared magwell. Now this is the PDPF, so it's just slightly different, but instead of moving lights around, both of these have Surefire X300s, so they're gonna fit the same holster. So we'll go ahead and drop in the one with the flared magwell. Okay, now you can see that because it's got that extra width, even though it's not much longer in length, that extra width with the magwell causes it to stick out more right there where it really, really counts as far as the size of it. Now, pull this one out and we'll swap it around. All these guns are clear and there's no magazines in them. I did check before. Now I'll drop this one in, and it basically disappears. There's really not a noticeable print anywhere. Even if I turn to the side, you know, it's not that noticeable. So you need to take into account that with the flared magwells, they're really nice to have. They're really nice, especially when you got to do a reload, but you've got to take into account the way that it is going to conceal. Now, a measurement that a lot of people get hung up on that does not matter. Now, within reason, obviously, if you're carrying a 16-inch barrel, it's going to matter. But as far as standard pistol lengths, you know, we're talking anywhere from about 3.5 inches out to about 5 inches or so. the length of the slide does not play a part in how well the pistol conceals. It will play a part in the comfortability of carrying it, but as far as concealability, that does not make a bit of difference. It's one reason why I've never understood the whole reasoning behind carrying like a Glock 19X or a 45, you know, something along those lines where it's a full-size frame but a short slide. Now, I guess I could understand it in certain aspects, but as far as concealed carry, it doesn't make much sense to me because, at least in my opinion, if you've got hands that require a full-size frame, you're probably big enough and you can get away with carrying the full-size barrel or the full-size slide. Because actually, the more that you have below your belt line, the better the gun is going to conceal. So in theory, a 5-inch slide is going to conceal better than a 3.5-inch slide, because the more that you've got below the belt line, the less that gun is going to want to flop out. It almost works as kind of like a wedge. So that's why oftentimes I'll carry, you know, a bigger light on my pistol, because you can see the length difference in these holsters. So this is the same size pistol, but when I add that light on, it extends the length of the holster, and that's going to actually help keep the top of the pistol, the part that wants to bulge out, it's going to help keep that pressed up against me. It's just a matter of leverage. That's all it is. You've got to think about the leverage. Whereas if I've got, say, a 3-inch slide or 3.5-inch slide, there's nothing to keep that gun from folding out over the belt, if that makes sense. Now, like I said, the length of the slide doesn't make a difference when concealing, as far as a shorter slide is not going to conceal better. But it is going to be more comfortable. So that's the point that I can kind of see the 19X or the 45 or something along those lines. Now, again, I'm just using Glock because most people understand those. Walther actually puts out a compact frame with a 5-inch slide. Now, to me, that makes perfect sense for a concealed carry gun, because you still get a long slide, you get plenty of velocity, plenty of energy. That gun's going to conceal really well because it's got so much below the belt that it's going to keep that frame from kind of flopping out. But it's still got the short grip, so you don't have to worry about it sticking out real far and printing. Now, it does play a part in comfortability, especially when you go to sit down. Now, this gun, or this holster, for instance, it conceals really well, like really, really well, and is really comfortable if I'm standing. But as soon as I go to sit down, that light right there jabs into my crotch. Now, I'm speaking purely from an appendix carry standpoint. I've never carried in any other position. This right here, I can sit in it all day, and it doesn't jab me as bad. But that's just things that you need to take into consideration, is the life that you live and what you're doing, your environment, what you're going to be doing that day. And I would recommend having some slightly different setups that you can kind of play with. So if I'm going into like a really sketchy area, well, I'm going to go ahead and carry the bigger holster. I'm going to have the bigger light on it, and I'm going to probably have in an 18-round magazine, and then the 20-round mag as a spare, because I want a lot of firepower. But for everyday use, I feel very confident with this right here, just the standard compact, and I'll put in the flush fit 15-round magazine. This is my everyday carry 99% of the time. So jumping into holsters, you've got a bunch of different options. Now, all of the examples today are going to be Kydex, and that is absolutely what I recommend across the board. You need to be carrying in a Kydex holster. Leather, that's gone. Okay, don't trust a leather holster. Definitely don't trust a nylon holster. At least a leather holster looks cool. Definitely don't be carrying with a nylon holster. But across the board, I do recommend carrying with a Kydex holster. It's going to protect the trigger, which is the whole point of a holster, is to keep the trigger from being pressed. So again, carry with Kydex. I've got several different examples right here. So right here is going to be a holster from Traditional Arms. It's the Louis Vuitton. So this holster actually goes with this rose gold PDP that I had Cerakoted up for me, actually for my girlfriend, but I kind of like it. So this is, this is going to be a very compact, slick, very minimal setup. Now, The disadvantage of this is going to actually be how much is below the belt. Again, the more you can get below the belt, the better the gun's going to conceal. So without having a light on it, it's really comfortable, but it doesn't conceal quite as well. And I'm going to show you, I think this will make sense for you. So now we'll take the gun that I carry. It's the same size pistol, but I've got a light on it. So you can see that the holster is actually wider. Now think about it from this standpoint. You put a wing on your holster, right? To help keep that, so that it interacts with your belt, and your belt will kind of pull it into you, and it'll take that grip and it'll pull it up against your body. Now, this holster's got a wing as well, and it does do that. But the further that you can get that wing out underneath the grip of the pistol, the more it's going to pull it into you. So now, while this is going to be slightly more comfortable because there is less mass in your pants, we'll probably leave that in there. So because this is going to be more comfortable, because there is less, you've got less that you're sticking in your pants. This is going to conceal better simply because the wing is out further underneath my grip. Now, I guess in theory you could carry without a light and you could get a really wide wing, but for the most part, your gun's actually going to conceal just a little bit better if you do put a light on it, because of the simple fact of holster design. And when you put a light on it, that's going to put the wing or the claw or whatever you want to call it, that's going to put that further out underneath the grip of the pistol, therefore pulling it up against your body. So some other examples are going to be something like this right here. Again, this is from Traditional Arms. Now this is, it's got a mag carrier on it. This is not a changeable. You cannot take this off. This is a fixed, I mean, everything is molded as you see it here. You can't move anything. You can't swap it. You can't reposition the magazine. This is the most comfortable holster that I've ever used. It's even more comfortable than the one that I carry every day. Now, the reason that it is so comfortable, despite it being so large, is because it's an even surface area. So when I drop this right here in my pants, now I've got a slight gap over here, and it just feels a little bit uneven. Now, obviously, every time you get used to that, and I don't really notice it anymore, but this right here, it's basically like I fill up every empty space. So it's really, really comfortable as long as I'm standing. Like I said, when I sit, it gets uncomfortable. That's just simply because of my body dynamics and the length of the light on here. This is a good option. Like I said, it's really, really comfortable, and you can carry a spare magazine, and it conceals really well. Another option is like this right here. It's a similar idea. It's got a magazine holder, but the mag holder can actually pivot, is put on by some shock cord. What I actually found with this is that it didn't conceal quite as well. Now, you would think that the magazine being able to move would be a good idea, but like I said, it just didn't conceal quite as well for me, because when I would drop that in, it was almost as if the mag holder was counteracting the wing, and it made it sit very flat. You know, it would just sit like flat in my pants like that, instead of kind of forming around like I needed it to do. Now, one thing that I've done to counteract that was I actually took a Dr. Scholl's gel shoe pad, put some double-sided Velcro, and stuck that on, and that created a little wedge. So while the holster wasn't doing that necessarily, not like I wanted to, it at least pivoted that holster and the pistol back up against my body, because I added a little bit of mass down here at the bottom of it. And so that little gel pad would interact with my pelvic bone and then tilt the pistol back towards my body. It's really, really comfortable across the board, you know, regardless of if you need a wedge or not. This is something I recommend doing. It makes it a lot more comfortable, just having that nice soft gel instead of a hard plastic holster up against your body. So we'll jump into a lot of people's favorite debate, and that's caliber selection. Now, I think that most people can agree that 9mm is pretty much won the debate. Now, it's not the most powerful round that you can carry, but it's kind of the good happy medium. The juice is worth the squeeze as far as capacity to the amount of energy that you get. You can carry a relatively small gun, get a relatively high round count, and you've got good energy. Now you can carry a 380 if that's what you decide to do. If you weigh out the options and you decide to do that, that's perfectly fine. If that's what you want to do, I don't recommend it. It just doesn't have quite enough energy. You're shooting the same size bullet as 9mm, but you've got less powder behind it. So you're shooting like a neutered 9mm. You could carry a 45, but to get the same amount of capacity that you're going to get in a 9mm, you're going to have to carry a massive gun. So where I can carry 15 rounds in this pistol, or I can even put in the Pro SD mag, you know, make it just slightly longer, and I'm still not even at the length of a full-size frame. I can carry 19 rounds, 18 rounds in the magazine plus one in the pipe. To carry 19 rounds of 45, it is going to have to be a big gun. But again, if you weigh out your options, you decide that, hey, I only need 7 rounds of 45, then again, that's totally up to you. I don't recommend 22 for defensive situations. We've got into that in a video already, and I'm actually going to expand upon that video because it done so well as far as views and interactions. Now, I made a lot of people mad because I did say that 22 is a terrible defensive round. I'm going to expand on that video again, and I think I can win some people over. But just to try to explain my side of the case and the way that I look at it. But again, if that's what you want to carry and you weigh out your options, that's fine. You can carry 22, you can carry 380, 9, 45, 10 mil, 40. If you carry 40, you suck. That's a terrible round to carry. You're getting all the disadvantages, but none of the advantages. So if you carry a 40, you're wrong regardless. But that's completely for you to decide. I would recommend looking into what that caliber is capable of, look into different types of ammo that you can maybe get to get the most efficiency out of it. But again, caliber, that's completely up to you, and I'm not going to tell you what caliber to carry. Well, actually I will. Carry a 9mm. I say just carry a 9mm because, like I said before, the juice is worth the squeeze. When you weigh out everything, capacity, size, the amount of energy that you get, the pistol size, it's just a really good all-around caliber because you want to carry something that you're going to enjoy shooting. That's why I don't recommend micro 9s. You're not going to enjoy shooting that gun. And so if you don't enjoy shooting it, you're not going to shoot it, and if you don't shoot it, you're not going to be good with it. And you need to be good with the pistol that you're carrying. Now, you can carry a 45-70 Derringer if you wanted to, but you're going to be terrified of it, and I don't want you taking a shot if I'm one of the bystanders, because you're not going to be able to tame that gun. Now, 45-70 is going to do a lot more damage than a 9mm will, and you ain't going to need more than one 45-70 if you hit your target. But chances are you're going to be so terrified of that gun that you're not going to hit your target. So the next point, after you've decided on what size gun you're going to carry, what size gun you can carry, and then what caliber you're going to go with, then you've got to decide on a brand and a model. Now there's tons of options out there. Everybody's got their preference. Just make sure that you get something good. Don't go buy a piece of crap gun. Make sure that you're carrying something with a really good track record. To recommend a few brands, obviously I like Walther. Glock is as proven as any other gun out there. Smith & Wesson, the M&P series, is really good. I would avoid the EZ. I don't have good experience with that. CZ makes really good guns. So there's tons of options out there. You just need to figure out which one you're going to go with. Now, what I would recommend is I made a little bit of a note in this. I made a little bit of a note towards this at the beginning, is how all of my pistols are PDPs, because no matter which one I'm shooting, I'm basically shooting the same gun, so they all feel very similar. So like I carry this one, but then on like my duty belt setup, my range belt, I shoot a full size, but they've got the exact same triggers, the same magazines, they feel almost identical. This one just got a bigger mag capacity, I've got a flared mag well on it, a bigger light, it's just a little bit heavier, but overall the guns feel very similar, so I'm not having to retrain. You know, I'm not, say I'm shooting a SIG P365 as my carry gun, and then I'm jumping to a Glock 17 as my, you know, fighting gun, or my like duty competition range gun, or whatever you want to refer to it as. I like to stick to at least the same brand. Another plus of that is magazines. So for instance, this magazine here fits in my full size. Well, it also fits in the compact because they're the same model of pistol. So that's something that you could consider if you're just going to be one and done. don't really matter. But if you do want to have multiple pistols, you know, at least 2 pistols, maybe you want a concealed carry gun, and then you want like a range gun and a nightstand gun, it does help to have the same model pistols, just different sizes. Now, none of these pistols have an external safety. I don't recommend carrying a gun with an external safety. That's one more step that you've got to get through before you can actually put the gun in action. And I want the least amount of steps possible. That's why I carry with one in the chamber. I'm not going to drive around in a car and then have to put my seatbelt on right before I wreck. Because if I've got to have my seatbelt on, I'm going to need it immediately. I don't have time to fiddle with safeties or buttons or racking the slide. That's why you carry one in the chamber. If you don't carry one in the chamber, you're wrong. Now, I do understand that makes people somewhat nervous, not having a safety. Obviously, reliable pistols and good holsters, they'll take care of all of your problems as long as you've got good fundamentals and good trigger finger awareness. Make sure that you're keeping that finger off the trigger and that you're conscious of what that trigger's doing when you're holstering and taking the gun out of the holster. So just with some simple safety and good habits, a reliable pistol and a good holster, you're not going to have any issues not having a safety on your pistol. If you still just can't get past that, what I do recommend is a double action, single action pistol. So the double action, single action pistol is going to be safer, if you will, than just like a striker fired gun without a safety, because that first trigger pull is going to be really, really heavy because you're having to actuate that hammer before the gun can go off. So it takes out a lot of the stress of accidentally pulling trigger, because it generally takes anywhere from like 8, 10, 12 pounds of pressure to pull that trigger, whereas say this right here, this Pro SD, it's like a 3.5, 4 pound trigger. It doesn't take much pressure at all to break that trigger. So if you just can't get past the idea of carrying a gun without a safety, then carry a double action, single action pistol. They're phenomenal, and you don't have to worry about defeating another step before you can actually put the gun in motion. So with all of this being said, the number one thing that you need to consider with yourself, instead of just listening to somebody else, is you've got to make up your mind which comfort you're carrying for. So are you carrying to be comfortable, or are you carrying to be comforted? I could carry a SIG P365 and I'm going to be really comfortable carrying it, but I'm not going to be comforted by it. Whereas I can carry something like this or this and it's not as comfortable to carry as, say, the SIG P365, but I'm much more comforted by these pistols because I know what I'm capable of with them. I'm capable of a higher level of proficiency with these pistols than I am, say, like a micro gun. But you might not be in that same boat, and you might want to just carry something to be comfortable with. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do, you need to take the route that works best for you, and you need to carry what you're going to carry. Don't buy a full-size gun saying that you're going to carry and then decide that you don't like carrying it because it's uncomfortable, and then you're not carrying anything at all. So, plain and simple, what I recommend, if I was going to recommend something to people, get a compact pistol, so a compact frame, a 4-inch slide. That way you can still carry 15 or so rounds. You can put a light on it. Now, this gun will do absolutely everything that you want to do. It'll be a good concealed carry gun. You can get an outside the waistband holster and work on, your range stuff. Makes a really good home defense gun. This will do everything that you need to do, and then you can step up from here and to give this gun a companion, because it will get lonely, buy the bigger version of it. Like I said, I recommend buying a pistol that's got, bigger siblings. So these two pistols right here, you've got this one right here for carrying, and then this one right here is going to be a really good home defense and range gun. So now that you've got your concealed carry pistol, then I would recommend trying a few different holsters to see what works for you. Try one that's just the holster that doesn't have a mag carrier on it. Try a holster that does have a mag carrier on it, and then try doing it separate. So a holster and then maybe a separate mag carrier. Just see what works for you, see what you can get away with. Chances are you'll find a place for all of them. Holsters aren't that expensive, So it pays to try out a few different ones. You can always sell them or give them away or whatever. But again, I have several different holsters, and depending on the situation, I might carry one holster or the other. I don't change guns often, but I will change the holster and the way that I'm carrying it. So now I do realize that I rambled on a little bit. This is kind of longer form, more just conversation, just because it's considerations. It's not me telling you what to do. It's just things that you need to consider. So I figured this would be the best format for it. Now, if you're interested in anything on this, anything that I went over today, I'll have tons of links down in the descriptions to different products and whatnot. I'll have links to training. So I'm actually doing some training next month with Weapon Snatcher or John Ruge. It's a concealed carry, fighting from concealed carry type class. I'll have that linked in the description as well. Would love to see you out there. Now, as I mentioned before, starting this whole video, this is a multi-part series, so it's several parts. This is a complete EDC considerations breakdown, if you will. So I've done part 1. I'll have that linked again. I just went over what I do carry. This is part 2. We're talking holsters and pistols. The next series we'll go over clothing, so that'll be the shirts and the belts and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm not sure where we'll go from there, but be sure to turn on notifications so that you don't miss out. Again, check the description. There'll be a bunch of links down there. I also have my Instagram link down there. So if you want to make sure that you're a part of all the action going on, be sure to follow that Instagram. It's the exact same handle. Again, it's Operator Overalls, and that'll be linked in the description. I'm a gun gear photographer. Walther is one of the companies that I take pictures for. So if you want to see a lot of cool Walther pictures, definitely hop over there. You can shoot me a DM. Let's talk about it. I actually had a guy message me last night asking how I do what I do and if I had any tips for him. So don't be afraid to shoot me a message over there. I will respond to you. It may take a couple days, but I will get to you, I promise. Now, all that I'm asking you to do is subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel out, helps me grow, and helps me get more information and content out to you guys. And then be sure to leave a comment. Now, I mentioned before that if you're a more experienced person, you've been carrying for a while, I'm sure a lot of you are more experienced than I am. So I would appreciate it if you would leave comments in the comment section, just giving more tips or things that I maybe got wrong, things that you think should be added or other things that you think should be considered. Just help me give some advice, give the people that are new to carrying, just give them a ton of information to decipher through so they can decide what's best for them. Now, again, I do appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you tune in for the next one.